Hey everyone, today Paul sort of has a conversation with the Corinthians about what's allowed. All things are permitted for me, but not all things are beneficial. All things are permitted for me, but I will not be dominated by anything. Food is meant for the stomach, and the stomach for food, and God will destroy both one and the other. The body is not meant for sexual immorality, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. And God raised the Lord, and will also raise us by his power. Do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ? Should I therefore take the members of Christ and make them members of a prostitute? Never. So like I said, this is kind of a conversation where Paul is trying to speak for both sides. But one of the issues in translation, see how those always come up, is that there's no quotation marks in Greek. And so it's up to translators and interpreters to figure out what actually is Paul's words and what are the Corinthians. And when we mistakenly attribute their words to Paul, we get some kind of bad interpretations, or that can radically change things at least. And so we're going to look at part of this passage the next couple of days, but here we have this repeated phrase. It occurs 3 times in this letter. Everything is allowed, or all things are permitted, right? That's almost definitely something they are saying, and Paul is quoting it. And there actually is a sense in which that is true for Christians. Paul himself says in Galatians, "You were called to freedom, brothers and sisters, only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for self-indulgence, but through love become slaves to one another." And so Paul wants us to know our freedom, but also to know when to lay it down for the sake of others. And what you see here is that when Paul quotes them saying this, which they may have gotten from him, he doesn't actually just disagree with them, right? He could just say, no, all things are not permitted. Instead, he just encourages kind of deeper consideration. Okay, you can do this, but is it going to build you up? You can do this, but is it beneficial to you or to others? He's helping us to see that a lot of times what we want to call freedom is actually being mastered or being dominated by our desires, by something negative. A kind of confusing way that I've talked about it is that those who are not free have to do what they would say they want to do, while those who truly are free want to do what they have to do or are supposed to do. See, the specific problem in Corinth is that there's some married men in this church who believe that they are free to go and have sex with prostitutes, that somehow it doesn't affect their body or their true self. We'll get into more of that tomorrow. I think assuming that we have enough knowledge, perfect knowledge of good and evil, that's kind of the first mistake that humans make, right? Going back to Genesis. And legalistic, rigid rules can't save us from that either. Instead, what we need is to know the freedom that we have in Christ and know how to use it as Christ. I think Augustine summed it up best. He said, "Love God and do as you will." Now, it sounds kind of surprising, but if you truly love God, what you choose to do will be good and loving and beautiful, and that's what we should do with our freedom.